Okay, one. Okay, go ahead, Mendel.
Zaide, I have a question for
Wait
you.
louder, Mendel.
Start it. Well, restart.
Okay, it's, wait.
Restart the thing. Start the
No,
recording.
it's recording. Okay, go.
Well, you have to restart it.
No, I can edit it after the start from the beginning.
Okay. I have a question. Hi, Zaide, I have a question for you. Do you have any
Yeah.
memories by Tishrei by the Rebbe?
Okay, so let me share the following. This was in Tafshin Lamed Beis in 1971, where by Tkiyas, the Rebbe would always blow Tkiyas every Rosh Hashanah. And that year, the Rebbe blew the Tkiyas, and the very last Tkiyah, which is like two, the Rebbe started to blow that Tkiyah, and it wasn't coming out. And we tried again, and it wasn't coming out, and time was passing. He was trying and trying and trying. 40 minutes was passing. And before the 40th minute, there's a guy that was in 770 at the time, and he was saying to himself, take a look, the Rebbe is trying so hard to blow that last Kia, and maybe Chas v'Sholom, there's a Gzeira in heavens on the Yidden, and the Rebbe is having trouble. He's trying to push through the Gzeira. And he said to himself in his mind, I have a TV in my home, a television. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw my television out. That's it. I'm after Rosh Hashanah, I'm coming home, and I'm not going to have a television anymore. And right that second, the Tkiyah from the Rebbe came out. A strong Tkiyah. This is one memory that I have. Okay? Did you get it?
Yes.
Okay. Another one is in Tafshin Lamed Ches in 1977, when the Rebbe experienced a heart attack. It was the middle of a kafas. It was Shmini Atzeres, the night of Shmini Atzeres. The Rebbe worked very, very hard the whole Tishrei. He would verbring a lot. He would give out lekach to people. And it was a very, very strenuous time for the Rebbe. And the Rebbe seemed to have been very, very tired. And it seems like he had some pain even during the day out of Shmini Atzeres. Out of the day that we pray our kafas, first Shmini Atzeres and then Simchas Torah. And during our kafas by Shmini Atzeres, they saw the Rebbe turned white, and they gave him a chair, and the Rebbe refused sitting down. He went down from his platform to where they danced with the Sefer Torah, and he did the last hakafa, but he did it very fast. And he came back up to his bima, and he sat down. In the meantime, Chassidim started yelling everybody out of their shul, so the Rebbe should have ear. You know, there's so many thousands of people, and there was no ear in 770. It was just packed. And in fact, even in the ladies section, which is higher up, not like near shul, but it's higher up in 770, they have these tinted windows. And Bachram started breaking these windows so there should be access of air coming in from the outside. Anyways, slowly the Rebbe walked back to his room, and it was said that the Rebbe had a heart attack. And I was then a Bacher. I was still not married. And I stood there with Bachram outside of the Rebbe's garden, outside of 770, waiting for better news. Instead of that, like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, Rabbi Bistritsky, who was always one that would go into the Rebbe's room, came out with a report that the Rebbe just had another massive heart attack, which was even stronger than the one before. Now, I want to go back a little bit. When the Rebbe went upstairs to his room, they called the Rebbetzin right away, and the Rebbe said, no, we have to make Kiddush. And the Rebbe, believe it or not, went into his sukkah, which was right in front of 770. And I'm not sure. Some people said that he made kiddush on grape juice, but the Rebbe managed to make kiddush on grape juice. Then he went back to his room, and as I told you, 4 o'clock in the morning, he had a massive heart attack. It was very, very serious. They then called in a famous cardiologist, which was named Ira Weiss, and he flew in from Chicago on Yontif, and they wanted to take the Rebbe to the hospital, and the Rebbe said he will not go to the hospital. Many of the other doctors that came said this is crazy because this is a serious situation. The Rebbe doesn't go to the hospital. It's that's a conus lefashos. It's a very, very scary. And the Rebbetzin, and they asked the Rebbetzin what to do. The Rebbetzin says, in all of my life, I've never gone against what my husband says to be done, and especially when it comes to his own well-being. And the Rebbe does not want to go to the hospital. He will not be taken to the hospital against his wishes. And that's how it was. They set up a whole machinery and a whole hospital thing in his room. In the meantime, I was a bacher. I went with 9 other friends, and we started walking on Yontef, like 5 o'clock in the morning, to the oil. And at the oil was only, of course, the Friedrich Rebbe's grave, right? Because the Rebbe wasn't 770. And we went to daven by the Friedrich Rebbe for a bracha for the Rebbe's health. And that walk in itself was a whole story of its own, because it was, imagine walking to the oil, it's very, very far. But we walked. We had some incidents during our trip over there. Some goyim started up with us. Then on the way back, we were so thirsty. The walk is like 2.5 hours. On the way back, it took us 4 hours. But we stopped when we were walking back, and we stopped one of my chaverim said, "Okay, we have to make kiddush. How do you make kiddush in the middle of a highway?" So I said, "I'm going to go into the bar over there, and I'm going to ask them for beer, and I'm going to promise and for a bunch of water because we were so thirsty." And I walked in there, and I said to the guy, "I promise you, look, I'm looking you in the face. Right now, we don't carry money. It's the holiday. After the holiday, I'll come back and I'll pay you and give us a bunch of beer and a bunch of water." And one of my chaverim made kiddush on beer. And then we finally reached home. Bubby Merrill, your great-grandmother, was very, very nervous because she didn't see me coming back home. And I came back home, my feet were killing. Anyways, but Baruch Hashem, the Rebbe recovered. And that was the story that happened then. Then, 10 years later, Tavshin Memches, Tismach, that's the way they called it. Tavshin Memches, they called it Tismach. It was a year that the Rebbe danced with the Sefer Torah, and it was a small Sefer Torah, and he was going in a circle, down where he used to dance with the Sefer Torah. He used to dance with his brother-in-law, the Rashag, Reb Shmaryo Garari, but the Rashag, I think, was not well, so the Rebbe danced by himself. And when he was turning around, he was holding the Sefer Torah and looking everybody in the face and waving the Sefer Torah towards them. Everybody was like a little bit afraid because this was very unusual. And guess what? That year is when the Rebbe Chaim Mushke passed away. And everybody then said, you see, there was something that the Rebbe tried to accomplish on Simchas Torah, because the Rebbe passed away 5 months later on Chabez Shvat. But the Rebbe tried with dancing with the Sefer Torah and bringing simcha to each and every one to take off some sort of a gzeira. Anyhow, it was the Tavshin Memches by this farbrengen of Simchas Torah. It was a long farbrengen, and it used to be the doctors used to hook up to the Rebbe a monitor to see how his heartbeat is doing, and to check his vitalities and his. And sometimes if they felt that the Rebbe's heart is not doing so good, they would push it, ask the Rebbe, please make the farbrengen shorter, and we're looking after you, not to chas v'sholom have another heart attack. Anyways, then the Rebbe, after the farbrengen, he benched, he made Avdola, and he started giving out Keshul Bracha. And Dr. Ira Weiss was by Kaishel Bracha the whole time. And his wife was from the same city of where your Bubby, Rishi, is from Worcester, Massachusetts. And the Fogelmans, Rabbi Fogelman, was in touch with Ira Weiss and his wife because they used to come to Worcester because his wife, Dr. Weiss's wife, was a Worcester girl. And I asked Rabbi Fogelman, can you do me a favor? So he says, what's the favor? I said, my mother has been very, very sick near Elter Baba Miral. She's been in bed, and her cardiologist told her not to move off her bed because her heart is so serious. And if she gets off her bed, God knows what's going to happen. She's not going to make it. In other words, basically, he gave up hope on her. And he said, you have a terrible heart condition. Don't move. Don't ever make your bed. Just stay in bed. Anyways, I asked Rabbi Fogelman if Dr. Weiss, who's a cardiologist, a heart doctor, would be willing to go with me to visit your great-grandmother. And he said, yes. Anyways, we come. This is like 4 o'clock in the morning on the end of Simchas Torah. And I had the key to Bubby's house always because, I always wanted to look after her in case there's an emergency. In fact, your mother will tell you we had a certain panic bell that Bubby had next to her bed in case Chas v'shalom anything happens. She can buzz it, and we would get the buzz in our house, which is right next door to where she lived in 669 Crown Street. Shai Schwartz lives there. And so I took the key. I started walking up the steps with Dr. Weiss. And I started humming this machta in order not to scare Bubby. Can you imagine? I'm coming 4 o'clock in the morning, especially. I'm coming with somebody else. And why am I coming so early in the morning? So I didn't want to scare her off. So I was just walking up the steps, this machta, and then I walked with Dr. Weiss upstairs to where she lived. And I walked into Bubby's room and I said, Ma, I have the Rebbe's doctor here. Is it okay if he comes in? And she says, sure, sure. And she comes in with me to Bubby. The first thing Dr. Weiss says, I want to just tell you something. He takes out a stethoscope and he starts checking her heart. One of these things when you check a person's heart, a patient's heart. And he says to her, I just want you to know, after the Farbrengen and after Keshe Bracha, I went into the Rebbe's room to check his vitalities and everything. So this stethoscope was just on the Rebbe's heart. Now I'm taking it from the Rebbe's heart. I'm putting it on your heart to check you. And Bubby was so happy about that. Anyways, and then he says, and I just want to tell you something else that happened in the room when I went to visit the Rebbe after Keshe Bracha. I told the Rebbe, Tovshin Memches is exactly 10 years after he had the heart attack. And I said to the Rebbe, not only don't you look 10 years older, but in fact, the way you danced with the Sefer Torah this year, and it looked like you were 10 years younger from when you had the heart attack 10 years ago. Can you imagine that? That means that the Rebbe's recovery was so strong. And that's when Dr. Weiss sat down with Bubby and he says, you have to change your diet. And he asked her what she eats. Bubby would tell her, says, no, you got to change your diet. And Bubby Deitsch, your Bubby Rishi, then took her after Yontif, took her to Abisera, who was a person that was very into health foods and eating healthy. And he gave Bubby a diet, and she kept to the diet. He just let her cheat twice a week, where she can have a salty herring, because people that have a heart condition should not be eating salt. But he says twice a week you can have a herring. But more or less, she changed her diet completely. And believe it or not, she got better and better and better and better. And she, in fact, she went in the winter. She used to go to the Vendome. Do you remember the Vendome, Mendel? Yeah. And she would go to the Vendome during the winter months. And she had her best years were her last 7 years. And Bubby happened to have passed away 2.5 weeks after Gimel Thomas the same year. She was like a chassid of the Rebbe, and she passed away in the same time. So that was a little bit of memories of Tishrei. Is that good?
Yes.
What?
My mother said I should ask you the story of Shalom Sukkah.
Oh, okay. So this was in the 60s, and it was in the L, the last L right before Tishrei of your Elter Zaide Zaide Deitsch, your mother Zaide, my father, who went for Yechidus for Shloime and Alta's wedding. That's the way it used to be. This was in 1967, but in Hebrew it was in Tavshin Chav Ches. It was in 1968, and Tavshin Chav Ches. And the Rebbe had turned to my father in Yechidus and said, my father turned to the Rebbe and said, the Rebbe made a gzeira. He made a rule that there should be no more drinking of mashke, people under 40, only to have maybe 4 little l'chaims in a small little kelish. But no more drinking a lot of mashke. And the Zaide Sholem had a minig that he used to make a kiddush in his sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. And my father, your Elter Zaide Sholem, turned to the Rebbe and said, Rebbe, what should I do? Should I cancel my kiddush? Because by my kiddush, the Rebbe knew that everybody says l'chaim, everybody drinks over there, and the Zaide was very respectful of the Rebbe's new rules, and he was thinking that maybe he shouldn't be making a kiddush. And the Rebbe said to him, "Those machen dem kiddush b'yeser seis u b'yeser oz in your sukkah. In your sukkah, you should make the kiddush with even more strength and more vigor." And in other words, the Rebbe like relieved him from the new rules which apply to everybody else all the time, with the exception of your Elter Zaide Sholem in a sukkah for the night of Shmini Atzeres.
Yes.
What did they say that?
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Okay.
Yaisef wants to say something to you. Yaisef, what do you want to say to Zaide?
Yesivka, you should grow. You should grow. You should grow up to be a chassid shebacher like your brother Mendel. You hear?
Names. Yes.
And both of you should grow up to be gute, gesunde chassid shebacher with tons of nachas to your tati and your mommy and your zaydas and your babas and to the Rebbe and to Hashem. And we should only hear simchas for this coming year.
Amen.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
With
Todd.
gesund. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Wait, Mendel, don't close it because I have to save it.